I'm Michael, 34 years old, a financial analyst grinding it out in Chicago. I grew up in a blue-collar family where my dad drilled into me that discipline is everything. You show up, you work hard, you build something. That's why I've been hitting the gym 5, sometimes 6 days a week since high school. It's not just about the gains. It's about proving to myself I can stick to something. I clawed my way up from nothing, landed a solid job, and now own a sleek townhouse in a nice part of the city, stainless steel appliances, hardwood floors, the works. On paper, my life's a damn success story. And the cherry on top, Jessica, my wife. She's 32, a marketing hotshot for some luxury brand, always looking like she stepped off a Vogue cover. We've done Maldives, Paris, posted those Instagram shots that make our friends jealous. I love her spark, her confidence. She's a whirlwind, and I'll admit, I was a little dazzled when we met. But lately, something's off. I can't put my finger on it. But it's like I'm living with a stranger in my own house. Jessica's got this way of cutting me down that stings more than it should. Like last week, I was going over our budget, trying to sock away a little extra for the future, and she rolled her eyes. God, Michael, you're such a buzzkill, always pinching pennies like we're broke. Her voice had this edge, sharp enough to make me flinch. I tried to laugh it off, but it stuck with me. She's always been flashy, loves her designer bags, her $200 salon visits, but it's more than that now. She's dismissive, cold, like I'm some boring roommate instead of her husband. It's not just the money stuff. She's got no time for my family either. My parents are salt-of-the-earth types, still living in the same modest house I grew up in. Jessica calls them simple, and not in a kind way. Last Christmas, she made a big show of staying home instead of driving out to their place. I'm not spending my holiday in that cramped little house, she said, sipping her third glass of wine. I went alone, made excuses for her, but my dad saw right through it. That girl's too focused on appearances, son, he warned, his voice low over a plate of my mom's meatloaf. I brushed it off. Jessica's just modern, right? Ambitious. Different from where I came from. I told myself we balance each other out, but the truth? I'm starting to feel like I'm chasing her approval, and I'm always coming up short. I bust my ass at work crunching numbers, staying late to impress the higher-ups, and she barely asks about it. Meanwhile, I'm her sounding board for every petty drama at her office. Who's backstabbing who? Which coworker got botched Botox? I listen, nod, try to care. But when I talk about my day, her eyes glaze over, or she's scrolling her phone. That's nice, babe, she'll say, not even looking up. In our bedroom? It's been a ghost town for months. I say, I love you first. Always. Her response is a half-hearted smile, maybe a peck on the cheek if I'm lucky. It's like she's checked out, and I'm too stubborn to admit it. I keep telling myself it's just a phase. Every couple hits a rough patch, don't they? I've been pouring everything into keeping her happy. Fancy dinners at places with $180 steaks, weekend getaways to Napa. I thought it'd bring us closer, but it's like throwing money into a void. The other night, we were at this rooftop restaurant, city lights sparkling below, and I reached for her hand. She pulled away, said the table was sticky. Sticky. I sat there, staring at my overpriced wine, feeling like an idiot. Have you ever felt alone right next to the person you're supposed to love? It's a gut punch. My dad's words keep creeping back. Too focused on appearances. I hate that he might be right, but I push it down, tell myself I'm overthinking. Jessica's my wife. We built this life together. I'm not about to let a few red flags unravel everything. Except I've been feeling off lately, not just mentally, physically. It started a couple weeks ago during this brutal stretch at work. 60-hour weeks, deadlines crushing me. I'm exhausted all the time, muscles aching like I overdid it at the gym. Probably just stress, right? Maybe the flu. But it's lingering, and deep down, I know something's not right. I mentioned it to Jessica, said I might see a doctor. She laughed. You're fine, Michael. Don't be so dramatic." Her words hit harder than they should have. And now, as I'm dragging myself through another late night at the office, I can't shake this feeling that something's about to break. My body, my marriage, or both. I thought Jessica would be there for me when things got rough. I mean, isn't that what marriage is? You vow to stick it out through sickness and health, for better or worse. I was wrong, dead wrong. It started with this nagging exhaustion, like my body was running on fumes. My muscles ached, not the good kind of sore from a killer gym session, but a deep, gnawing pain that wouldn't quit. I'd wake up with a low-grade fever, my skin clammy, my head pounding. I figured it was just the flu, maybe stress from work piling on. I was pulling 60-hour weeks, crunching numbers for a big client, and I didn't have time to be sick. But it wasn't going away. I brought it up to Jessica one night while we were eating takeout. Some overpriced sushi, she insisted on. "I'm not feeling great," I said, poking at a piece of tuna. "Might go to the doctor tomorrow." She didn't even look up from her phone. "You're always complaining about something, Michael," she snapped, her manicured nails tapping the screen. "It's probably nothing. Don't make me cancel my girls' night over this." Her words hit like a slap. I sat there, stunned, waiting for her to ask how I was feeling. Maybe show a flicker of concern. Nothing. She just kept scrolling, laughing at some influencer's post. "Have you ever felt invisible in your own home?" I swallowed the hurt, told myself she was just stressed too. But deep down, I knew something was off. A few days later, it got worse. The fever spiked. My body felt like it was burning from the inside out. And the pain in my muscles was so bad I could barely lift a coffee mug. I was shivering under a blanket on the couch, trying to keep it together. I asked Jessica if she could grab me some Advil from the kitchen. She sighed, loud and dramatic, like I'd asked her to run a marathon. "You're such a baby," she said, tossing her hair. "There's soup in the pantry if you're that bad. I'm not getting sick because of you." Then she announced she was sleeping in the guest room. Didn't want to catch whatever I had, since she had a big presentation at work. No offer to help, no glass of water, not even a glance to see if I was okay. I lay there, alone, in our perfect townhouse, staring at the ceiling, wondering where the woman I married had gone. I tried to tough it out, kept dragging myself to work, popping Tylenol like candy, ignoring the way my hands shook when I typed. But the truth, I was scared. My body wasn't right, and Jessica's indifference was eating me alive. I'd look at her across the dinner table, her flawless makeup, her designer blouse, and feel like I was begging for scraps of her attention. "Maybe I should get checked out," I said one evening, my voice barely above a whisper. She rolled her eyes. "God, Michael, you and your gym obsession, and now you're falling apart. Maybe if you didn't push yourself so hard." That was it. No. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm worried." Just a jab that made me feel small. I shut up, went to bed, and told myself I was overreacting. But the loneliness? It was heavier than the fever. Then came the night. Everything fell apart. I woke up around 2 a.m., drenched in sweat, my heart racing. My left arm wouldn't move right, like it was made of lead. I tried to sit up, but the room spun, and a sharp pain shot through my chest. I called out for Jessica, my voice hoarse, barely audible. "Jess, help." Nothing. I dragged myself to the bedroom door, each step like wading through quicksand. She was there, curled up in our king-size bed, sleeping like nothing was wrong. I banged on the door frame, desperate. "Jessica, please." She stirred, sat up, and glared at me. "What the hell, Michael? I'm trying to sleep. I have a meeting at 8 a.m. Her voice was ice cold, dripping with annoyance. I stood there, swaying, half my body numb, and she just pointed to the couch. "Go lie down or something. You're making a scene." Then she turned over and went back to sleep. I don't know how long I lay on the floor after that. Minutes? Hours? My phone was across the room and I couldn't reach it. My vision blurred, and all I could think was, she doesn't care. She never cared. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. 6 years of marriage, and this was who I'd given my heart to? I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just broken. With every ounce of strength I had left, I crawled to my phone and dialed my brother, Kevin. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy but sharp when he heard me. "Mike, what's wrong?" I could barely speak, just gasped out. "Help! Hospital." Kevin didn't hesitate. "I'm coming. Hang on." He got there in 20 minutes, bursting through the door like a damn superhero. Jessica was still asleep, didn't even stir. When Kevin half carried me to his car, I was fading in and out, the streetlights blurring into streaks as he sped to the ER. "Stay with me, Mike," he kept saying, his voice tight with panic. At the hospital, it was chaos. Doctors, nurses, machines beeping. They hooked me up to IVs, ran tests, their faces grim. Kevin stayed by my side, gripping my hand, while I tried to process what was happening. All I could think about was Jessica's face, her irritation, her complete disregard. Had I been blind this whole time? Was our marriage just a lie I'd been telling myself? The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. I was in bad shape. Fever through the roof, organs under stress. They suspected some kind of infection, but needed more tests to be sure. I was admitted to the ICU, tubes and monitors everywhere, and Kevin was the only one there. Jessica didn't show up that night, or the next morning. When I asked Kevin to call her, he hesitated, his jaw tight. "I'll handle it," he said, but I could see something in his eyes. Anger, maybe pity. I didn't push. I was too weak, too scared. Lying in that hospital bed, I felt like I was falling into a void. My body was failing me, my wife had abandoned me, and I didn't know if I'd make it out alive. What do you do when the person you love most turns their back on you? I didn't have an answer. All I had was Kevin, the hum of machines, and a growing dread that the worst was still to come. In the ICU, I was fighting for my life. And it wasn't just my body that was breaking. My whole world was crumbling. The doctors said I had septicemia, blood poisoning from a bacterial infection, gone wild. My organs were shutting down, my heart was struggling, and every breath felt like sucking air through a straw. I drifted in and out of consciousness, hooked up to machines that beeped and hissed while nurses hovered with worried faces. But the worst pain wasn't the tubes or the needles. It was realizing Jessica, my wife of 6 years, was a stranger. Lying there, half dead, I kept replaying her last words to me. "You're making a scene. Who was I married to?" Jessica showed up at the hospital eventually, but it wasn't the visit I'd hoped for. She strutted in around noon, dressed like she was headed to a brunch date. Tight dress, full makeup, heels clicking on the linoleum. I was barely conscious, but I saw her through the haze. She didn't hold my hand or ask how I was. Instead, she sighed, plopped into a chair, and started scrolling Instagram. The doctor came in, explaining how critical my condition was, and she barely looked up. "Yeah, okay," she muttered, tapping her nails. Then she took a selfie in the waiting room. Pouty lips, perfect filter, and posted it with some bullshit caption about praying for strength. She was gone in 20 minutes, claiming she had a work thing. I watched her leave, her perfume lingering like a slap in the face. Have you ever felt like you're nothing to the person who's supposed to love you? It's a void that swallows you whole. My family was the opposite. My parents drove 14 hours straight from their small town, their faces etched with worry when they arrived. My brother Kevin never left my side, sleeping in a stiff hospital chair, fetching coffee for the nurses to keep them on my case. The staff noticed the contrast. One nurse, a kind older woman, whispered to Kevin, "Your brother's lucky to have you. Not everyone does." I caught her glancing at the door Jessica had breezed through. It stung, but I was too weak to process it. All I could do was cling to the fact that Kevin was there, his hand on my arm, telling me to fight. "You're tougher than this, Mike," he said, his voice cracking. I wanted to believe him. A few days in, something shifted. Kevin went back to my house to grab some clothes for me. He looked off when he returned, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. I was lucid enough to notice. "What's wrong?" I croaked. my throat raw from the breathing tube they'd just removed. He hesitated, then sat down, his hands clenched. "Mike, I need to tell you something, but I don't know if you're strong enough." My stomach dropped. "Just say it," I rasped. He took a deep breath and spilled the truth, a truth that ripped my world apart. When Kevin was at the house, he saw Jessica's laptop open on the kitchen counter. A message popped up from some guy named Chad, her gym trainer. It said, "Can't wait for tonight. He's still clueless, right?" Kevin's gut told him something was wrong, so he dug deeper. He found hundreds of messages, photos, even hotel receipts. Jessica had been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. She'd been sleeping with Chad in our bed, on trips she claimed were for work, even while I was fighting for my life in the ICU. The messages were brutal. She called me weak, boring, said she only married me for the money, but needed excitement with Chad. She laughed about my gym obsession, mocked my job, my family. One text gutted me. "He's in the hospital now, so I've got more time for us." She sent it the day I almost died. Kevin showed me a few screenshots he'd saved on his phone, his hands shaking with anger. I stared at the words, glowing on the screen, each one a dagger. "I didn't want to tell you yet," Kevin said, his voice low, "but you deserve to know who she really is." I didn't cry at first. I didn't yell. I just felt nothing. A hollow, aching nothing. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of loving her, building a life, and it was all a lie. I remembered every time she dodged my touch, every cold smile, every excuse for why she was out late. It all made sense now. The signs were there, and I'd ignored them, too proud or too scared to face the truth. What do you do when you realize you've been living with a stranger? The nurses kept checking on me, worried my heart rate was spiking. But it wasn't the infection killing me. It was the betrayal. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying our life together. The Maldives trip where she spent more time posing for photos than talking to me. The nights I cooked dinner, hoping for a real conversation, only to get one-word answers. The way she flinched when I said, "I love you." Like it was a chore to respond. I'd been so desperate to make it work, I'd blinded myself to who she was. And now, here I was, closer to death than life, and she was out there, living her glamorous lie, while I was just collateral damage. Kevin sat with me, his silence heavy. "I'm sorry, Mike," he said finally. "I should have seen it sooner." I shook my head, my voice barely a whisper. "It's not your fault. It's mine." I felt like a fool. All those times I defended her to my dad, brushed off her snide comments, told myself she was just independent. I'd built her up in my head as this perfect, vibrant woman, when really she was a coward who'd used me and thrown me away when I needed her most. The worst part? I still loved her, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. That love was a ghost, haunting me as I lay in that sterile bed. I don't know when I started crying. It wasn't loud, just silent tears leaking down my face, soaking the pillow. Kevin didn't say anything, just handed me a tissue and stayed close. I wasn't crying for the pain in my body, or even for Jessica. I was crying for the life I thought I had, the trust I'd poured into her, the future I'd imagined. It was all gone. I felt like I was falling into a black hole, with nothing to grab onto. Who was I without her? 6 years of my life, my identity, my dreams, they were tied to her, and now they were ash. I didn't know if I could climb out of this, didn't know if I wanted to. What was the point of fighting when everything I believed in was a lie? But somewhere, in that darkness, a spark flickered. I don't know if it was Kevin's loyalty, my parents' love, or just pure stubbornness, but I made a decision. I wasn't going back to that house, to that life, to her. Jessica thought I was weak, a pushover she could manipulate. She was wrong. I'd survived the streets of Chicago, built a career from nothing, and now I was surviving this infection. I'd survive her too. As I drifted off, the monitor still beeping, I felt something new, resolve. I didn't know how, but I was going to take my life back. Who was I married to? Not the woman I loved, but a stranger who'd made her choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I walked out of that hospital a different man. Not just because I'd cheated death, but because I'd seen the truth. Jessica, my wife of 6 years, wasn't just indifferent. She was a liar who'd betrayed me when I was at my lowest. Lying in the ICU, staring down septicemia, I'd decided I was done being her doormat. From that sterile bed, I swore I'd take my life back. And I meant it. The old Michael, the one who ignored red flags and begged for her scraps of affection, was gone. I was ready to fight. For my health, my dignity, and my future. I couldn't go back to our townhouse. The thought of sleeping in that bed where she'd been with Chad while I was fighting for my life made my skin crawl. So, I moved in with my brother Kevin, crashing in his spare room in a modest apartment across town. My body was a wreck. 22 pounds of muscle gone, my strength sapped from weeks in the hospital. I'd gone from deadlifting 350 pounds to struggling to hold a glass of water. Physical therapy was brutal. Every session felt like starting from zero, relearning to walk without a limp, gripping a rubber ball to rebuild my hand strength. My therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, didn't coddle me. "You're here to work, not whine," she'd say, pushing me through the pain. I respected that. It reminded me of my dad's lessons about discipline. Each step, each rep, was a brick in the foundation of the new me. Kevin was my rock. He cooked me meals, nothing fancy, just eggs, chicken, whatever was cheap and packed with protein. He drove me to therapy, sat through my rants about Jessica, and never once said, "I told you so," even though he'd seen her for what she was long before I did. My parents called daily, their voices a lifeline. "You're stronger than this, son," my mom said. And for the first time in months, I started to believe it. But rebuilding my body wasn't enough. I needed justice. Jessica had to answer for what she'd done, not just the affair, but abandoning me when I was dying, using our money to fund her double life. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. I called up Mark, an old college buddy who'd become a divorce lawyer. Over coffee, I laid it all out. The ICU, the texts, the receipts Kevin found. Mark's eyes narrowed as he flipped through the screenshots. "She's sloppy," he said, shaking his head. "This is a slam dunk." He suggested hiring a private investigator to dig deeper, and I agreed. Within days, the PI had more dirt. Jessica wasn't just sleeping with Chad. She was also cozying up to a senior VP at her company, some sleaze named Greg. Hotel bills, late-night Ubers, even a $1,200 charge on our joint card for a client dinner. That was really a getaway with Greg. The evidence was a gut punch, but it also lit a fire in me. She thought I was weak. I'd show her just how wrong she was. Mark and I built a case, preparing divorce papers that would hit her where it hurt. Illinois is a no-fault state, but her infidelity and abandonment gave us leverage for alimony and asset division. We had texts, bank statements, even security footage from a hotel lobby showing her with Chad. Every piece was a nail in the coffin of our marriage. I didn't want revenge. Not exactly. I wanted fairness. She'd used me, mocked me, left me to die. I wasn't going to let her keep the life we'd built while I started from scratch. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, I was strong enough to confront her. I texted Jessica to meet me at a quiet coffee shop downtown. She showed up looking like she always did. Flawless, in a tailored blazer and heels, her hair cascading like she was auditioning for a shampoo ad. But I wasn't the same Michael she'd dismissed. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I saw the surprise in her eyes when she sat down, like she hadn't expected me to look so alive. "You're doing better," she said, her tone fake sweet. I didn't smile back. "Let's cut the bullshit, Jessica." She started in, same as always, blaming me for everything. "You made such a big deal about being sick. she said, tossing her hair. I had to keep living my life, Michael. You were so distant, always at the gym or work. It was the same tired script. Twist the knife, make me the bad guy. I let her talk, her voice grating like nails on a chalkboard. Then I slid a manila folder across the table. Open it, I said, my voice cold. Her face changed when she saw the contents. Printed texts from Chad, hotel receipts, a photo of her and Greg in a bar, her arm around his waist. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered. I cut her off. You slept with Chad in our bed. You spent our money on your side pieces. You left me to die in the ICU while you posted selfies about prayers. Don't lie to me. For the first time, she looked scared. She tried to pivot, tears welling up, crocodile tears. I knew her tricks. I messed up, okay? I was stressed. Let's work through this, babe. Babe. The word made my stomach turn. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. We're done. Her tears dried up fast. She went from pleading to venom in seconds. You'll regret this, Michael. You're nothing without me. I stood up, leaving the folder on the table. Funny, I said. I'm already better off. Walking away, I felt a weight lift. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing her approval. I wasn't begging for her love. I was free. That night, back at Kevin's, I sat on his lumpy couch with a beer, staring at the city lights through the window. I didn't feel joy. Not yet. But I felt relief. The man Jessica thought she could break was gone. In his place was someone new, someone who'd survived betrayal, who'd clawed his way back from the edge. The divorce was just the start. I was going to rebuild my life, piece by piece, and no one, not Jessica, not Chad, not anyone, would take that from me. Have you ever had to face a truth so ugly it changes you? I did, and I was ready for what came next. The divorce was over faster than I expected. Illinois courts don't mess around when the evidence is airtight. Jessica's betrayal, her affair with Chad, her fling with her boss Greg, the way she abandoned me in the ICU, painted a clear picture. The judge awarded me the townhouse, most of our savings, and even made her cover a chunk of my medical bills since she'd left me to die while spending our money on her side pieces. It wasn't about the money, though. It was about justice. She'd built her life on lies, and now those lies were crumbling. I heard through a mutual friend that her affair with Chad got exposed at her company. The scandal cost her her job. Greg, the VP, cut her loose to save his own skin. Last I heard, she was bouncing between temp gigs, drowning in credit card debt, her Instagram feed gone silent. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Her downfall was just gravity doing its work. Me? I was climbing out of the ashes. My body was healing, physical therapy paid off, and I was back in the gym, lighter than before, but gaining strength every week. I deadlifted 200 pounds last month. A far cry from my old PR, but a victory I'd earned. Work was good too. My boss gave me a promotion after I closed a big deal, said he admired my grit, but the real win was my headspace. I wasn't the guy who begged for Jessica's approval anymore. I'd learned to trust my gut, to value myself. That's what kept me grounded when I met Emily. Emily was different. She was 33, a social worker with a laugh that could light up a room, and eyes that saw right through you, not in a judgmental way, but like she really got you. We met at a fundraiser Kevin dragged me to, some community thing for kids in need. I was still raw from the divorce, not looking for anything, but Emily had this warmth that pulled me in. We talked for hours that night about real stuff, my recovery, her work, the way we both loved quiet mornings with strong coffee. She didn't care about flashy vacations or designer bags. When I told her about Jessica, she didn't pity me. She just listened, then said, "You're stronger than you know." It was the first time in years I felt seen. We started dating, slow and steady. Emily wasn't a replacement for Jessica. She was better because she was real. We'd hike trails outside the city, plan trips to places Jessica would have scoffed at, like Yellowstone. One night, over burgers at a dive bar, she grabbed my hand and said, "I'm glad you're here, Michael. Not just alive, but you." That moment hit me hard. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. A few months later, Jessica texted me out of the blue. "Can we talk? I've changed." I stared at the message, her name glowing on my screen like a ghost. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to see if she'd own up to what she'd done. But then I remembered the ICU, her cold eyes, the lies. I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need her at all. I blocked her number, no reply, and went back to my life. Have you ever let go of someone and felt lighter for it? That was me. I'm happier now than I've ever been. Emily and I are planning a future, one built on trust and respect. My family's closer than ever. Kevin's my best friend, my parents, my biggest cheerleaders. That whole nightmare with Jessica taught me something priceless. I'm enough. I don't need to chase anyone's approval. I'm grateful for the pain in a weird way. It showed me who I am. From the wreckage, I found peace. If you've been through hell, what got you out? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story.